there's just the most incredible drama playing out in the Suez Canal. It's a massive ship. It's called the Ever Given. It ran aground in the middle of the canal this week. It's now blocked the canal. There was a huge storm and a spring tide that made it run aground, it seems, lengthways across the passage, which means the canal is blocked. Ships have to sail, particularly big ships, have to sail. Instead of going through the Suez Canal, they have to sail around Cape Town. As a result of that, prices of oil are starting to rise. Well, how do you move a ship like this and get it off the sandbank? Nick Sloan is the South African salvage expert. He was able to salvage the Concordia ship that ran aground, that sank, in fact, several years ago. He joins us now. Nick, good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. I imagine everyone's phoning you this afternoon. This ship ran aground. I think it was a storm at spring tide. I imagine that makes it much harder to refloat it.
Good afternoon, Stephen, and your listeners. Yes, it's unfortunate because it is one of the largest vessels in the world, and where she ran aground is in a part of the Suez Canal that is particularly narrow. So when she, with the size of the windage, if you can imagine 4 football fields long and 50 meters high, that's an incredible windage. So when the wind actually picks up and you have any problem, then that causes you to drift off your course. So she ploughed into the shallow side of the canal, and the momentum swung her stern right around. So not only did she plough up thousands of tons of the bottom of the canal and the shallow side, she impaled herself through the other side of the canal, and the stern swung round until it blocked off the left-hand side. So it is a huge challenge because she had over 1 million tons of momentum with her, and that's going to be a problem.
So, I like the way you call that's going to be a problem. What kind of techniques are available to do? I mean, you know, I've sort of been playing, you know, during my child's bath time. What do you get? Do you put a flotation thing underneath? I suppose someone's going to try and take some of the weight off it.
Yeah, I think in this case it's easier to actually dredge. So basically they've got 2 dredges that are on permanent standby and service to maintain the depth of the canal. So those 2 dredges are on site already. The salvage team arrived yesterday. They're doing a full seabed mapping assessment, and then they've got to see how that impacts on the ship itself. So if you can imagine the bow of the ship, the front is suspended on one side of the canal and the back or stern on the other side. Her belly is in the deepest part of the canal and is not suspended, so there's fears that there could be structural damage to the ship. They've got to try and get rid of that sandbank on the bow section and stern section as soon as possible and actually recreate water depth around her with dredges. To try and lighten her with cargo is a huge challenge. There's only 5 or 6 ports in the whole of Europe where these ships can actually go in, that have cranes that can actually get that high and manage those containers. So to try and do that in the Suez Canal is going to be an even bigger challenge. The other thing they can look at is pumping off ballast water. So they have several thousand tons of ballast water, and they carry several thousand tons of fuel. But first they're going to have to assess the structural condition and stability of the ship before they can pump the liquids off. So yeah, I think they've got to recreate the water around it. That's the sort of easiest and first target.
I mean, when we look at pictures, and we've seen some of them on the screen of this thing next to a bulldozer. A bulldozer is a pretty big thing. It just shows you how absolutely massive this is. And all of the problems really stem from that. It's just so big and so heavy.
Yeah. And when she came off course, if you can imagine the biggest truck that goes on our roads, when they lose their course and they go off the side, now you just extrapolate that until you've got something that's 4 football fields long and over 220,000 tons, and the momentum is incredible.
Could it actually be a problem where it's stuck there for several months? I mean, that would be the worst outcome, and I'm thinking maybe if there is damage to it, it could actually take a long time to shift. I mean, the impact on world trade would actually be immense.
Yeah, there's already over 200 ships that have been stopped using the canal in the last 72 hours. So I would imagine that ships who are heading for the Red Sea towards Suez and through the Straits of Gibraltar will already be altering course for the Cape. they know that that's an extra 10 to 12 days passage. But if you're already at Gibraltar or before you get into the Suez, it's going to be quicker than when this is resolved. And I think that, we're not looking at days here, we're looking at a week for them to even try and dredge that type of volume of sand. At the same time, try and maintain the structural integrity. If the ship gets structurally damaged and they have to discharge cargo, then you're certainly looking at not weeks, but maybe months.
Nick Sloan, thanks very much indeed, the South African salvage expert who helped to raise the Concordia. What a story. Imagine having to sort that out, being the person having to fix that. Well, probably better than being the person who caused it anyway.